Hello, everyone, and welcome to Channeling History. We're the only show where we speak to the souls that made things happen in the past. I'm Barry Strohm, your host, and I'll be doing the channeling tonight.
And I'm Connie Strohm, your co host, and I would like to also welcome you all to our show. Last week, we had a very interesting and educational show with Robert Oppenheimer and Fred the Alien, where we discussed military weapons of the present and the future. It's a very interesting show and it's available on YouTube. It's in the name of Barry Strohm and has over 580 videos at this point. We're currently consolidating all of our audio broadcasts on a new platform named Podbeam.com. Just go to the site and search Barry Strohm. This week, we're going to channel with three famous entertainers: Jimmy Buffett, Johnny Cash, and Kenny Rogers. This should be a great and fun show tonight. So please feel free to submit any questions through the chat room for our guests.
Okay, before we start, let's do a short disclaimer, and then we'll get on with the show. So, the opinions or statements voiced on our show are the channeled words of the spirits, do not necessarily reflect our opinions, those of the ParaX Network, or of our sponsors. Before we channel, we also say a prayer of protection. So Connie's now going to say the prayer, and we'll begin to channel with our wonderful guest tonight.
God, please grant us your wisdom and protection. Grant us the knowledge that we can handle and keep us safe from all things that will harm us. Keep the messages positive and pure love. Keep us safe from our own egos. We ask these things in the light of the seen, the unseen, and the honesty of God.
Okay, Connie, let's start speaking with the spirit of Johnny Cash. Johnny was born in 1932 and died in 2003. One of the best-selling music artists of all time, having sold well over 90 million records. Johnny, when he was doing his shows, would always wear black on stage. So, one of my favorites, Connie, let's begin.
Okay, Johnny, thank you so much for coming with us this evening. Would you like to begin with a message for our listeners?
I definitely would. This is a bit of a surprise for me. I never realized that I was going to be able to be speaking again. But I must tell you that I certainly am happy that this can happen. You see, when I walked the earth, I never thought that somebody could speak to spirits like this. I believe I might have worked it into some songs had I known, but that's the way it is. I always enjoyed being a performer. It led me down some wrong paths, but it also let me do wonderful things. I had fans throughout the world. I could sing. I could try to make them happy. I had a wonderful life. Things could have been better at times in it, but they were learning lessons. I wanted I wanted to do what I could do. And there were many people that were forgotten, many people in the jails that really weren't bad. Now there are many that are, but there were many that could be rehabilitated, and the governments weren't doing much to do it. There were problems with the environment. Native Americans were being mistreated by the country, as always. So there were many things that I tried to address in my life. Many I didn't manage to make much effect on, but there were some that I did. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight, and I'm looking forward to it.
As are we. Johnny, you sang many different types of music. You country, rock and roll, gospel, blues, and I'm sure I'm missing some. Which was your favorite?
I think I had two favorites. One was obviously country, and the second was gospel. I always enjoyed singing the gospel songs. That's how I got started. That's why I think that I was blessed in so many different ways. I believe that if some of the old beautiful Southern gospel songs were some of the best music that was ever written. Country was was basically my bestseller. More people love country music. The time that I was popular, country music was at its height. There were many great stars that I got to know. It was a wonderful time, but I do believe that the gospel songs that I sang were the favorite.
What was your belief in God?
I always believed in God. Never had any doubts that he existed. I grew up with the gospel music, sang it, went to churches, did many things. I believe that you don't succeed too much in this life unless you believe in God. Now there are people out there that have great powers, and I'm sure that the last thing they think about is that day they're going to come to heaven, but it will come for all of them. It is an inevitability that there will be a time that your soul learns to know that God truly does exist. He blessed me in so many ways. I found that I could keep screwing up and he would keep trying to bring me back on the path. But there definitely is a God, and when you get over here where we are, there will be no doubts.
For sure. Johnny, why did you always wear black when you were on stage?
Well, in the beginning, I wore black because it didn't show dirt. We were singing in these little spots, didn't always have access to laundry machines and washers and dryers. So you could wear black for quite a few appearances before the dirt started to show. Once I started to get a little bit more fame, people kind of would ask me about why I dress in this, and I would say because it is of all the things that are going wrong, and there's so many people to help, and that I would wear black until the time that the people were helped. So I knew that for the rest of my life I'd be wearing black.
How did the Great Depression affect your family?
We were extremely poor. We lived in public housing. We tried to do our best to make a living. Even though my father was poor, he never let turning to crime or anything like that get into his life. I understood that the poverty affects people in many, many ways. I tried to help people while I was alive and had a little bit of money. I did what I could, but the depression was terrible. I would suggest that people of the country today don't fall into the trap and believe that another depression cannot hit. The way the politicians currently are spending money, it's inevitable that there will be a time that you pay the price for what's taking place. The huge national debt, that will have an effect at some point. You just cannot keep spending what you don't have. But the depression was terrible, no way around it, and I truly hope that the people find a way that there will never be another one.
Would you tell us about your service in the Air Force?
I joined the Air Force, uh, served my time, came out as a sergeant. I saw much, learned much. It was a difficult time for the country, but I think that it was actually instrumental in keeping me on the straight and narrow, at least for a while. The Air Force is a very good institution, and I would highly recommend it for any young man that does not know exactly what path he wants to follow. They'll train you, they'll teach you, and it's not a bad way of life.
Indeed. Some of what you said kind of makes me think of Elvis. What was your relationship with Elvis?
we were getting started at roughly the same time, and I got to meet him when I was still fairly young. We actually, in the early days, sang some songs together. We would be trying out for some of the same parts. Elvis was a very good man. He was very friendly. He would shake your hand, just a country boy like I was. He knew how to treat people. He knew how to gain fans, and he was highly successful.
What was it like sharing an apartment with Waylon Jennings?
Well, it was a bit smoky. Waylon was into drugs, marijuana, amphetamines, and at the same time I was as well. I can't say that the time that I spent with Waylon helped me physically, but I must admit that it was fun.
Okay, you had an outlaw image. Did you ever serve time in jail?
I never served a long time in jail. I'd get my butt in a jam, almost said a bad word there. I would be caught drunk. There were several times I got caught with marijuana. Several times they caught me with my amphetamines and barbiturates. And there were times that I spent the night in jail, but I was never put away for any long period of time. I guess I had a close enough relationship with jails that I understood that it was a place where individuals needed help. And I believe that I succeeded by having my concerts in many of the prisons.
What are your comments about drug addiction?
Drug addiction almost destroyed my life. I was very lucky. I tried to straighten myself out several times. It was very difficult. I would go into rehab, and perhaps it would last for 4 or 5 years, but depression, the pressures of being on tour would get to me, and I would start falling back. I would tell anyone never to try anything that will make you form an addiction. I saw many of my friends die of overdoses, and I saw drugs destroy individuals who were very talented. Drugs are an extremely terrible thing, and today they are even worse than they were in my time. Many of the states are trying to legalize drugs, but I think they're finding that it's going to be a terrible path for them. The biggest mistakes that I ever made in my life was letting drugs take hold of me.
Could you tell us about June Carter?
Well, obviously, June played a huge part in my life. She was from a very talented family. I toured with some members of it. I wanted to marry her, but she wouldn't marry me until I got straight on the drug thing. And every time I would relapse, she would help pull me out of it. Wonderful woman, great personality. I spend much time with her over here, so I'm obviously not going to say anything too bad.
Why did you decide to perform at prisons?
Individuals in prisons were the forgotten members of our population. Many of them were had many problems. Drugs had put many of them in prison. And I felt that they needed to have some type of incident or concert that could bring them hope. They were some of my most enthusiastic audiences. I loved playing in front of them. I know that sometimes the administrators of the prisons were very nervous by the fact that I was going to be there, but they were some of the best concerts that I ever did. And as you know, many of the recordings that I did at the prisons turned out to be huge hits.
Yes. What's your opinion of country music today?
I'm not sure there is much country music today. Today, the performers are incredibly talented, but they cross over into many other genres. The classic country sounds are non existent. They tour with these huge bands. They play, they're extremely talented. The songs that are written in many instances do not remind you at all of country music. So I would say this: they are some of the most talented musicians that I have ever witnessed. But the music that they play today, it's very difficult to find any relationship between that and the true country sound that I grew up with and that I tried to sing and play.
You were an activist for North American Native Americans. What is your opinion of the status of Native Americans today?
Treatment with the Native Americans is no different than it's been through generations. They are still abused. The only time that they get even is when they open their casinos and take the white man's money. But the government still has to address the problem of Native Americans on the reservations. The problems of alcohol, drugs, poverty, they're at their greatest when it comes to the Native Americans that are on the reservations.
You said the old are still neglected, the poor are still poor, the young are still dying before their time, and we're not making many moves to make things right. There's still plenty of darkness to carry off. Do you see any difference as you watch from the other side today?
No, nothing really changes. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, the middle class become the poverty class. People are taxed beyond their means. Price of goods increases with inflation. So nothing has changed.
If you could make any changes in your life, what would they be?
The major change that I would make in my life is I would never touch drugs again. They almost pulled me down, they almost ruined my career. Drug addiction is growing outrageously in the country. The liberals just simply don't understand the effect that legalization of drugs is going to have in the long term. But if I had one thing that I could go back and change, it would be my relationship with addictive drugs.
So, what's it like being a musical recording star in heaven?
Well, you don't have to worry about your instruments being out of tune. You get to do whatever you want over here. It's a wonderful place. I hang out with many of the great musicians throughout time. Hank Williams, they're all here. It is an incredible place. You can play with these musicians, you can do what you want. That's one thing about heaven, it gives you a lot of choices.
That's what we hear. What was your record concerning charitable giving?
I tried to do the best I could with charities, but I probably know I should have done more. I accumulated a lot of money through my life, and I should have dedicated more of it to helping others. I tried to help the Native Americans. I tried to help the poor. I gave money to things like the Red Cross and other charities, but I should have definitely done more.
Johnny, I've definitely enjoyed our time together this evening. Thank you. Do you have a final message for us?
I would just like to thank you for allowing me to come through. I actually had a wonderful life. I made a lot of mistakes, drugs being the biggest part of them, and I hope if you only do one thing listening to my words tonight, it's that you stay away from drug addiction. There's nothing to be gained by it. Same goes for alcohol addiction. And especially when you cross the two of them together, something bad is sure to happen for you. I hope that the young musicians understand that it is still a great world of opportunity if you can find songs that people associate with. Music is a great relief. Many people, the only enjoyment they really find is listening to music. So I hope that the young musicians don't give up, keep fighting. I hope that they bring music and not some of this rap crap that you hear. So anyway, thank you for allowing me to come through. I know the other boys are waiting to talk. Thank you, Johnny. You were definitely one of my favorites. When I was traveling around the country, I always had a CD in the car listening to your music. So now let us talk with the spirit of Jimmy Buffett, a true free spirit. Jimmy was born in 46, died in 2023, not too long ago, and I know many people were incredibly saddened by his passing. He portrayed a lifestyle based on enjoying life and following your passions. What could be better? So, Jimmy, thank you for coming tonight. I know Connie has some questions for you.
I certainly do, and I'm so glad you're here, Jimmy. Would you like to begin with a message?
Absolutely. I lived an incredible life. It was a little tough in the beginning getting started, but I tried to live the life that I talked about. I knew that it was a lot more fun to party, that you would meet great people, that there was so much that you could do to help others. I tried to bring happiness to people. People need to have a place of relief, a place to relax. Margaritas helped a lot, and I must admit to my life I did have one or two. But all I can tell you is I lived the ultimate dream. I wound up being very lucky in business. I was very successful. My fans were incredible. I hated leaving, but then when God calls, you don't have a whole lot of choice. So thank you for letting me come through tonight, and I'm kind of looking forward to it.
As are we. You were educated by Jesuits as a Catholic and served as an altar boy. How did that work out for you?
Didn't work out too bad until I turned 21 and could drink. That was kind of like my downfall, really, because I started to understand that if you hung out in bars, there were beautiful women there. The alcohol wasn't bad. I picked up learning to play the guitar, and I found out that I enjoyed singing and people loved to hear me. So I never stopped believing in God, but I must admit that I was not the best altar boy.
Okay. You enrolled in Auburn University and were taught to play guitar by a fraternity brother. Tell us about your experience at Auburn.
I can't say that my experience at Auburn was too great. I lasted a year before I flunked out. The women were gorgeous, though. The fraternity parties were wonderful. And I found out that I was pretty talented on a guitar. You put together a guitar, singing happy songs, a little bit of alcohol for the women. What's that like to like? What's not like? Uh, what's not to like about it? Of course, the books didn't match in too well with it, but you got to do what you got to do.
Well, you did pretty darn well without the degree, so I'd say you did fine. What was your opinion of the Vietnam War?
I didn't want any part of it. I thought that it was wrong. I didn't. I love my country, but I thought that what the politicians were doing over there was terrible, that it was a political war, and I really didn't want any part of it.
What was life like when you moved to Key West?
Wonderful. The Key West environment and I just got along perfectly. There were musicians there, artists, songwriters, authors. I met all these incredible people. They encouraged me to sing. They encouraged me to enjoy life. They encouraged me to do basically what I wanted to do. The parties were wonderful. It was just a magnificent place. The temperatures were great. The only thing that sucked about it were the occasional hurricanes, but sometimes you just got to live with that. But it gave me the background, the psychological foundation that I needed, and I was as happy as could be.
Yes, we have to agree on your atmosphere down there because Barry and I were down there already and it was fantastic. How successful was your first album?
Uh, I sold, I think it was 325 of them. So you could say we didn't really do too good with the first try at it. But I kept singing in the joints down in Key West and the different bars and started to form a band. And my playing got better, my songs got better, and all of a sudden we were doing pretty good.
Yeah, your first hit was Margaritaville. Tell us about writing this song and what it portrayed.
Well, I found that I could do pretty good writing with a hangover. And tequila, margaritas, they were a great inspiration for me. I kind of decided that I was going to write songs that portrayed the way I wanted to live. And I found out that there were many people that agreed with it. And indeed, my first hit was Margaritaville.
Will you tell us about the flight of your airplane, the Hemisphere Dancer, over Jamaica?
Well, I had this airplane, and we were using it to fly around and go from place to place. We flew over Jamaica, and apparently the police started to feel that we were running drugs in the plane. And believe it or not, they started to shoot at us. And we had actual bullet holes in the airplane when we landed.
Oh my.
The it was not only me. I had the family, and I had Bono along. That would have really, if those cops would have had a better aim, that would have been the end of you two.
Mm. You were one of the richest musicians with a net worth of estimated at over $1 billion. In life, do you think you did enough for charity?
No, I don't think I did. When you have money like that, you should allocate a great portion of it. The reality is, you don't really need that kind of money to live and be happy. When I got over here, that was one of the things that they pointed out to me, that there really was more that I could do. Now, I did donate to charities. I supported things like the Red Cross. I did I did try to do good with stuff. I tried to say I contributed to charities that tried to save the manatees here in Florida. I did what I thought was sufficient, but when I got over here, the guides did have a bit of a chat with me about the fact that I should have done quite a bit more for the people that were living in poverty and were having problems.
So, how were you judged when you got to heaven? I mean, I know they were not happy with some of the things you did or did not do, but yeah.
They were extremely happy with the way that I had provided entertainment and outlets for people. But as I said, the one problem I had is I should have taken a larger percentage of my income and used it for the charities and helping others.
Uh, Jimmy, one of our listeners would like to know if you miss drinking margaritas.
I always miss drinking margaritas. But over here, you really don't need them. But you can simulate them. Thank goodness you don't simulate a hangover to go with them. But heaven's a wonderful place. There's beer in heaven, and and occasionally margarita.
What do you think about the New Orleans Saints?
I love them. I've always supported them, but I'm starting to pity them. I think that they could do a lot better. I just I just don't know what to say about the Saints. I cheered for them through the years, supported them, but I fear that they're not very close to having that Super Bowl ring.
Okay, another one of our listeners would like to know. She said, I know heaven is wonderful, but do you still spend a lot of time in Key West?
Not a whole lot. I do go down there once in a while to see how my friends are doing. But keep in mind, as I had grown more successful, we had pretty much moved out of Key West and didn't spend nearly as much time there. So no, we don't go down there that much now that I'm on this side.
Now that you're on the other side, what message do you have for the faithful parrot heads, one of which is our daughter?
I would love to thank them with all my heart and soul. I didn't have much choice about leaving them. That's the way things happen at times. But I hope that they'll continue to listen to my music and think well of me. I know that they were incredible supporters, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart.
Environmental conservation was one of your favorite missions. Now that you're on the other side and can truly see the state of the environment, what is your message to our listeners?
You have to consider environmental problems. I know it's very difficult, and I know that the United States does the best they can, and it leads the world in trying to solve environmental issues. I know that there's real problems with China and India pumping CO2 into the air as fast as they can. It takes people that are intelligent activists. If you go out and block a highway, you're not going to make a lot of friends for what you're trying to do. If it is very important that we solve these long-term problems. The planet is pretty resilient, and you will find that it bounces back readily. But what you need to do is have realistic long-term plans. The world has got to participate together in this. One country like the United States can make a dent, but without the participation of the major countries, there's not much you're going to be able to really truly accomplish.
What is it like for you as a musician to be in heaven?
Well, being in heaven's a great place, and I'm kind of enjoying it. I get to see anyone that I want to see. I can sing with anyone. John Lennon and I get along pretty well. It is it's hard to describe because even though we don't have bodies, we can kind of form up and sing together, and it's great to go to the concerts when we go back down and not have to pay for the tickets. So it's there's a lot of advantages to being here.
Yeah. One of our listeners has a suggestion for you to write a song about beer in heaven. So,
It's not a bad idea, but it's a little hard for me to get it back to you guys now.
okay. Is it possible to party in heaven? And are there any margaritas in heaven?
Oh yeah, it's very easy to party, but partying is different. Partying is simply being with other people, laughing, singing together. We can form up and dance over here if we want to do it. There's really no severe limits to what we can do over here.
That's fantastic, as we are told. What do you see as the most dangerous environmental risks today?
Weapons of mass destruction. If somebody starts using those damn atomic bombs, you're going to find out what true pollution is.
For sure.
The effects of war on the environment offset almost anything that you can try to do to help the environment. People have got to understand that they must be responsible.
Okay, this next question would be impossible for me, but what is your favorite song?
I'm not sure I have one. Margaritaville always has a place in my heart because that was important. And believe it or not, I kind of like Cheeseburgers in Paradise because I love cheeseburger and I'm certainly in paradise.
True. What was your true philosophy for life, and do you think our listeners should follow that philosophy?
My true philosophy was that you should enjoy life, do what you want to do, not hurt others, party. If you feel like living it up, it's fine. You should be able to enjoy yourself. Happiness, there is nothing to replace true happiness in life.
True. Did you really party as much as portrayed for you?
Yes.
Good. Jimmy, we really enjoyed talking to you, and I enjoy your music. Do you have any final message for us?
I'd like to thank you so much for allowing me to come through. I did kind of enjoy this. They told me that it would give me a chance to talk again, and I always did enjoy talking. Wish that I could sing for you, but I'd have to do that through Barry, and I know that would be a disaster. So basically, I'd just like all of you to keep playing my songs, live a good life, enjoy yourself, relax. Know that heaven is waiting for you, but there's no rush to get here. When you get here, you're going to find out just how good things can be. Be good to one another. Love one another. Know that there's nothing wrong with having a good time. And help your neighbor. That golden rule applies. If you help others, then you're going to have a good life. And when you get back over here, you will be repaid for that good life. So thank you for allowing me to come through. I enjoyed it. Should you want to hear from me again, no problem. And I highly suggest, Connie, that you do not try to sing.
I was going to mention that, and you beat me to it. Yes. And that's a little thing between Jimmy and I from a couple weeks ago. Um, Thank you, Jimmy. I really enjoyed talking to you in spite of the fact that you made fun of my singing abilities. Next, we're going to channel with Kenny Rogers. Kenny was born in 1938 and died in 2020. He sold more than 100 million records in his lifetime. His career spanned multiple genres, including jazz, folk, pop, rock, and country. Kenny, thank you for joining us. Would you like to begin with a message?
Absolutely. It's a little hard following those two. Jimmy is almost said a bad word.
We'll just say a piece of work.
And it ended in whole. And Johnny is Johnny. He's a wonderful person. So not bad having those two warm up the audience for you. I truly enjoyed entertaining. I thought it was a wonderful thing. I loved being in front of the people. I loved that I could entertain. It was a thrill when you would enter this room with all these people and they would clap for you and they would cheer. I met some of the most wonderful people in the industry. I had great friends. I had a great life. There were times that it was difficult, but there were many times that it was truly great. I made some mistakes in my personal lives, but wound up with a wonderful wife. So there was a lot of good in my life, and I'm glad that I could bring some joy to others. So thank you as well for allowing me to come through and speak. I hope that people still listen to the music of the three of us. I think that in many respects, it's a lot better than some of the songs that are available today. I think that our type of music was very good for the nation and good for the people in general.
Yes, I loved your music. I consider music a gift from God. So you grew up poor in the Federal Housing Project. Will you tell us about your early life?
I truly think that my roots were created in my early life. My family had problems. We had to resort to federal housing. My dad had trouble getting employment at times, but he always showed a lot of love for the family. He knew where his priorities were and he did the best he could do. And when you do the best you can do, things usually come out pretty good. Many people today are still in abject poverty and need help. Hopefully, the governments will wake up and decide to do the right thing for a change. But my background helped ground me through my life. I realized what it was to not have, and when I had, I tried to do the best to help others that I could.
What was it like to be a young musician in the 1950s?
It was actually a great time for the music. The boys had come back from the Second World War. They were raising families. They were doing their best to make the country great and to rebuild. The people were using the new technologies, records, radio. TV was beginning to come into existence. There was many opportunities that did not exist before. There were a lot of us that were very talented that were trying for the same jobs at times. It was a very difficult time to gain recognition, but there were many great talents that managed to bring their talents to the forefront. And I was lucky enough to be able to achieve a certain level of fame. And the 50s and the 60s and 70s, I tried to entertain for many, many years. And I was very successful at it. Taste changed through those times. And I tried to adapt my music to those changes. But I guess I was just lucky. But when I came back over here, I realized just how much God had blessed me and how he had provided for me through all those years.
Yes. One of our listeners said that you performed a lot of duets. Do you have a favorite one?
Oh boy, you're going to get me in trouble with that one. Well, I'm going to pick one that's still alive, and that would be Dolly Parton.
Uh,
I love Dolly. She's an incredible talent. She's a wonderful person, helps so many people. But I think when I sang with Dolly, it was as good as any that could get.
yeah. What is your opinion of the modern country singers?
I have to agree with the boys that go before me. There's not much country left in the modern country singers. They're incredible talents. Their ability with their instruments are are wonderful, but the old country sound just isn't there anymore. We tried to more or less stress the words that we were singing. Today, there is so much background music going on that you can hardly hear the words. And I think if the trend continues, country, good, solid, old-fashioned country music is going to be but a memory.
Yeah, your first major hit was The Gambler. Where did the idea come for that song?
Well, I used to enjoy cards a bit in my younger days. And I thought that a professional gambler that knew how to play his cards could actually bring that ability to helping to live their lives. You got to know when to fold them and you got to know when to hold them. And that is the way of things in many of the decisions that you make. Some days you just got to fold your cards and go on and try something new.
That's excellent advice. You first hit to reach the top of the charts was Lucille. Where did you get the idea for that song?
I had a friend that was a military veteran and was very limited in his mobilities. He was hurt in the war, and he had a wife that did not exactly want to stay true to him because of his inabilities. I thought we could put that terrible situation to music, and it turned out to be a pretty effective song.
Yes. Barry and I saw you perform in Las Vegas with Dottie West. What was it like to perform with Dottie West?
Dottie was a great talent. She was wonderful to perform with. She could ad lib, she could roll with the punches. She had a great personality, great sense of humor. She and I did some wonderful shows, and I thank you for coming to see us.
Yes. You gave me my laugh for the night, but I'm not going to tell all of our listeners what it was. Now that you're on the other side, who do you hang out with?
Anybody I want to. I see Johnny quite a bit. I see some of the old country singers. I see many of the talents that I tried to emulate when I was young and when I was trying to formulate how I wanted to enter the business. I see people, politicians. Can you imagine being able to talk with Abraham Lincoln and seeing what songs he liked? It's heaven is incredible. I know you keep hearing that. Heaven is as everyone says, it's nothing that you'll ever be able to describe.
Yeah, what's it like? What is it like for you to be a musician in heaven?
I love it. It lets me come back. I go to see a lot of these concerts. I see what's taking place and I see the trends in music. It's just unlimited.
Yeah, it's amazing. Will you tell us about your charitable work?
I tried to contribute to many different charities. I did more than I think than the public realizes. I gave money to things like the Red Cross. I used money to support several churches. I tried to do what I thought was adequate, but I should have done more. I was very wealthy, and you really don't need the kind of wealth that I accumulated to be happy. I wish that I had done more with setting up continuing charities. That was one thing that when I was judged, they did talk to me about as much as they did with the others here. But I would like to tell anyone that is listening that they don't have to spend money to help others. I did help many through my music. I tried to give guidance, and I tried to live a good life.
So, how were you judged when you returned to heaven?
They told me that I should have done more charities, that I really should have reached out and helped more people. But they also said that I had set a good example with my life, that I had led others, that I had brought joy to many, and that I had done many, many good things. So I was actually promoted when I came back, and I was very happy with my judgment.
Good. One quick question before I continue with mine. One of our listeners would like to know, can you play poker in heaven? And have you played with the great players?
Well, it's easy to cheat over here because you can pretty much tell what's going on. So we really don't play much poker. We do more things like singing together and being together and partying and talking, but can't say that I have played much poker since we got back over here.
Okay, if you could change one thing in your life, what would it be?
If I could change one thing in my life, I think that I would do more to help the children. I see what Danny Thomas did with the hospital. He's setting a great example and he's helping so many people. I wish that I had gotten involved with something that would help the children, that would have longevity like Danny did. I had the money to do it, and sadly, I just didn't do it.
You made multiple movies. Did you enjoy acting?
I thought it was fun. I thought I never had a great big leading man's part, but playing the parts that I did were very enjoyable. And it did take time away from my singing and my music career, but I did enjoy it.
Well, that's good. That's important. Hey, you published a children's book, Christmas in Canaan. What would you tell our listeners about the importance of teaching our children?
There's nothing more important than teaching children. They're the leaders of the future. If you allow people to take God out of the life of children, then the country is doomed as well as evolution. Children are the key to the future. Children must be taught, and they must be taught to live good lives, to use common sense, not to do anything to anyone else that they don't want done to them. If they grow up with those simple rules, the world will change.
I agree with you 100% on that. What impact do you think social media has had on country music?
It's detracted from country music. You have these influencers that lead people away from classic music. You hear very little gospel music on social media.
What do you see as the future for country music?
I don't see a bright future for country music. I think as the older generations die off, the memories will leave. I think that country music will probably fade. I do not see many people coming forward, and sadly, I don't see many people paying to hear it.
Kenny, I've really enjoyed speaking with you this evening. Would you like to have a final message for our guests?
Yes, I would like to thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight. I enjoyed here being with these other two clowns. I thought that they are incredible. I hang out with them over here on this side. I would like everyone to understand the value of music. Music can bring relaxation, it can bring joy, it can bring happiness. Many people living in poverty can still enjoy music. I would hope that the performers of today would bring music concerts at reasonable prices. The incredible prices people charge today is keeping live music away from many participants. I would hope that the performers of today understand that they are very, very important to how this country matures. I hope they understand that taking patriotism out of music is very damaging. So I just simply want to thank you for allowing us to come through. Should you ask us, I'm sure that we would return again. Goodbye.
I suspect there's a good chance that we might ask you to come back. I've totally enjoyed all three of you this evening. You're three wonderful souls.
Okay, next week we're going to do something a little different. We're going to channel with conservative talk show host Rush Limbaugh. Many people either loved him or hated him. I'm very interested to see if any of his opinions changed now that he's on the other side. So he will be our guest next week. Connie and I have started a new podcast. It's called Hello Heaven. We broadcast it on YouTube and Facebook Live Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. The audio is available on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcast, Alexa, and many, many of the other platforms. My 10th book, you never heard this one before. My 10th book, Modern Message of the Archangels, is available for purchase. The book can be purchased on paperback, hardcover, ebook on Amazon. Signed copies are available on my website, barrystrohm.com. That's Strohm. Many people misspell. During the past several years, Connie and I channeled 20 different archangels, and we bring their message in a single volume.
I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight on Channeling History. This week we tried to bring you conversations with three of the greatest musical talents of the recent past, and they were also great people. We've been trying to bring you the truth about history by speaking to the souls that lived the events, and it's only by understanding the events of the past that we can prepare properly for the future. So God bless you all. Have a great week.
Okay, all of our shows are available on our YouTube channel. It's in my name. We hope you enjoyed our show tonight. I know I did. They're great personalities. Wish I'd thought about bringing them on the show a little earlier. So thank you for listening. Please join us Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the Para X Radio Network.